In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, March 20th, here in South Korea, a detailed allocation plan for next year's medical school admission seats is being shared by the government this afternoon, despite opposition from medical professors and practitioners that has resulted in a nationwide walkout by Korea's junior doctors. Meanwhile, North Korea's Kim Jong-un oversees a successful test of a solid fuel engine for a new intermediate-range hypersonic missile back on Tuesday, according to the regime's state-run media. And back here in South Korea, the leaders' plenary session under the Third Summit for Democracy begins at 8 p.m. Korea Standard Time as the final agenda of the three-day event that seeks to restore global faith in democratic values amid rapid technological advances. The Yoon administration is unveiling its allocation plan for next year's medical school admission seats this afternoon. The government plans to expand the current quota of 3,058 seats to 5,058 come 2025. And out of the 2,000 new seats, 1,600 will be allocated to medical schools beyond the Greater Seoul area. Should the allocation take place according to the government's plan, admissions in provincial areas will account for over 71% of the total quota from the current 66.2%. Beyond national borders, North Korea's state-run media claims the regime has successfully conducted a ground test of a solid fuel engine for hypersonic missiles. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung tells us what this means.
North Korea has claimed success in a ground test of a solid fuel engine for a new medium to long-range hypersonic missile. The North Korean Central News Agency reported Wednesday that Pyongyang conducted the test at a launching station near the west coast the day before, under the supervision of leader Kim Jong-un. Kim reportedly expressed great satisfaction with what he called the successful completion of the Strategic Weapons Development Plan presented back in 2021. Hypersonic missiles are among the list of weapons Kim vowed to develop within 5 years after the plan was announced. The regime conducted its first ground test of the engine last November. In January this year, the North test-fired a solid-fuel IRBM tipped with a hypersonic warhead. Experts say Tuesday's engine test was carried out as part of efforts to correct flaws discovered then.
The launch in January did not have a sufficient flight range despite it being a medium to long-range missile. They had to verify once again that it can fly up to a range of about 3,500 kilometers. So it appears that they increased the combustion time of the rocket's first stage to increase the flight range.
The North appears to have conducted the engine test on the ground instead of test-firing a missile this time to avoid tensions with Japan.
North Korea is currently showing relative restraint in firing in the direction of Japan's exclusive economic zone. Although we still have to wait and see, we can see that this is ultimately a sign of caution and consideration in preparation for future dialogue with Japan.
Hypersonic missiles are designed to travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound and often maneuver at relatively low altitudes, making them harder to detect and intercept. While North Korea's ICBMs are mainly designed to reach the U.S. mainland, this IRBM can be seen as a weapon system with the main purpose of targeting U.S. military bases in Guam or Japan. Eyes are on whether the North will soon test launch a hypersonic medium to long-range missile equipped with Tuesday's newly tested engine. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And South Korea is shuttering the Gaeseong Industrial District Foundation, which served to support inter-Korean business ventures in the North Korean border city of Kaesong. The foundation is holding a regular board meeting on this Wednesday here in Seoul to pass a related motion as well as a liquidation plan. Now, relevant support for South Korean companies will be provided by the South-North Korea Exchanges and Cooperation Support Association. Founded in 2007, the foundation's operations have been suspended since 2016. President Yoon Suk-yeol will co-chair a virtual summit of world leaders Wednesday evening to address democracy for future generations amid a rapidly changing world. The leaders' plenary session under the Summit for Democracy begins at 8 p.m. Korea Standard Time as the final agenda of the three-day event hosted by Seoul. The leaders of South Korea, Kenya and Denmark will each chair a discussion. President Yoon will underscore the need to protect democratic systems against the threats of fake news and disinformation driven by artificial intelligence. Kenyan President William Ruto will lead a session on the Global South and Danish leader Mette Frederiksen on inclusive society and youth empowerment. Arirang News will bring you live coverage of this virtual leaders exchange starting at 8 p.m. tonight. Now, ahead of the leaders' online gathering, dozens of offline workshops were held here in Seoul back on Tuesday with the focus on youth and democracy. Our Kim Jong-sil reports.
The second day began with an opening ceremony under the theme Democracy for Future Generations. Government delegates and experts from around the world gathered for the opening ceremony in Seoul. One of the main coordinators for the event, East Asia Institute Senior Fellow Lee Suk-jung, told us why the second day was dedicated to the young.
I think the future of democracy depends on the young generations. So therefore, inviting them to speak for their own stake is very important for the resilient democracies. So in that purpose, the third summit, the overall theme is democracy for future generations.
On this day, various workshops were available to participants with themes including global democracy coalitions, politics, youth empowerment, and digital technology, among others. I'm standing in front of one of the 60 workshops or similar events taking place here at COEX on the second day. And majority of these are focused on giving a platform to young people from all over the world to speak, as they are the present and future of democracy. The third such U.S.-led summit is being held outside the U.S. for the first time this year. Thomas Garrett, the Secretary General for Community of Democracies, a partner for the U.S. government's Youth Democracy Network, sat down with Arirang News.
We're always very impressed by the role of the people, of the masses in South Korea, from things like the Candlelight Revolution. You know, we're here for the Summit of Democracy, and one of the interesting things was when this process started, the U.S. President Joe Biden said, we need champions for democracy. And I think Korea has proven that over and over, but very much proven that they are a champion for democracy with this third summit.
Secretary General Garrett added that young people are needed to revitalize democracy, especially in a time of social media that's changing the digital technology landscape. He said it is the voices of young people that are going to keep democracy alive and fresh for the next 75 years. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The government has shared additional countermeasures to tackle soaring food prices. Seoul's Agriculture Ministry on Wednesday said discount coupons will be available for fruits at major supermarkets. Also, cherries and kiwis will see slashes in tariffs. Authorities will also seek to raise the quantity of fruits stored after harvest. Stores, meanwhile, are exploring the option of expanding their offering of imported fruits. In his opening remarks for the 21st government policy briefing held here in Seoul earlier on Tuesday, President Yoon Suk-yeol pledged a new miracle on the Han River by fostering affordable and quality life throughout the capital city. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon explains.
The second miracle on the Han River. That's what President Yoon Suk-yeol called his plans to innovate the nation's capital during a policy discussion with citizens on Tuesday at an art center in the city's old industrial district of Yeongdeung-pogu.
과거 한강의 기적이 대한민국 성장과 번영의 역사를 상징한다면 새롭게 일으킬 제2의 한강의 기적은 서울의 도시 혁신이 될 것입니다. 대한민국 수도 서울을 파리, 뉴욕, 런던을 넘어서는 글로벌 인류 도시로 발전시켜 국가 제도약의 발판으로 삼아야 합니다.
His plan includes changes to the nation's real estate market to tackle rising rent and the complex methods of redevelopment. Most notably, President Yoon said he will abolish a real estate policy whereby the government gradually raises its declared property values, which he says has meant higher punitive taxing on homeowners, leading to rising rent costs. He also said in 2 years, 100,000 small to medium-sized homes will be available for rent to provide affordable housing. For his redevelopment plan dubbed New Village Project, older, often overlooked multi-home residential buildings known as villas in Korea will be redeveloped into modern townhouses. Loan opportunities will be provided for them. Government funding will help pay for CCTV, parks, and parking lots in these areas with 10 trillion Korean won pledged over the next 10 years. That's nearly $7.5 billion US dollars.
그동안 집을 다시 짓고 싶어도 엄두조차 낼 수 없었지만 이제 몇 가구만 모여도 뉴빌 사업을 통해 깨끗한 새 집과 편리한 커뮤니티 시설을 누릴 수 있습니다. 올 하반기부터 바로 시범 사업 공모를 시작하여 내년부터 본격적으로 사업에 착수할 것입니다.
He also mentioned the cultural aspect by saying that more locations are needed where artists can exhibit or perform what they've worked on, emphasizing the role of creativity from culture.
서울의 이런 문화 인프라를 강화시키는 거는 이제 서울은 경제, 금융 이런 분야로는 세계적으로 손꼽습니다. 그런데 이게 세계적인 도시가 되려고 하면 결국은 문화 인프라가 이거를 좌우합니다.
In the meantime, President Yoon said what's discussed doesn't just apply to Seoul. The new policies and infrastructure that need to be improved also go to the rest of the country. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea's workforce is forecast to decline starting in the year 2028. According to the Korea Employment Information Service on Tuesday, the economically active population looks to grow by some 316,000 between 2022 and 2032. Now, this growth is only a tenth of the growth recorded over the previous 10 years amid Korea's rapidly aging demographic portrait. In fact, come 2025, a fifth of the population here is expected to be aged over 65. US semiconductor giant Nvidia is testing Samsung's high bandwidth memory, or HBM. Now, this is according to its CEO, Jensen Huang, during the second day of Nvidia's GTC 2024, an annual AI developers conference hosted by the tech giant. When asked if Nvidia was using the South Korean-made HBM, Huang said they are not currently, but are testing it with high expectations. HBMs significantly increase data processing speed by connecting multiple DRAMs vertically. Such high-performance memory is essential for generative AI, which requires rapid and continuous processing of massive data. Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to reaffirm his commitment to allies, including his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, as part of his diplomatic priorities, having secured a fifth term in office. A summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un is also believed to be in the cards. Our Moon Hye-ryan covers these prospects.
Russian President Vladimir Putin will travel to China for talks with Xi Jinping in May. According to a Reuters report on Tuesday, this could be the first overseas trip of his new presidential term after being re-elected on Sunday. The Kremlin declined to comment, but with Russia strengthening its ties with China since its invasion of Ukraine, it's unsurprising that Putin has made Beijing his first stop. Xi also visited Russia for his first overseas trip following the start of his third consecutive term in March last year, with the reciprocated gesture set to come after Putin's formal inauguration around May 7th. Putin reaffirmed Moscow's close ties with Beijing on Sunday, stating he would continue to develop their relationship in the coming years. The two leaders have met over 40 times, with the most recent meeting in October, when Putin was the guest of honor at China's Belt and Road Summit in Beijing. Trade and military ties between China and Russia have been particularly strong in recent years, with Chinese customs data showing that trade between the two sides hit over $218 billion between January and November last year. The Chinese Foreign Vice Minister also confirmed the strength of bilateral ties by claiming them to be the best in history during a visit to Moscow last month. Attention is also on whether Putin will be visiting North Korea, with observers predicting that such a trip could come in the second half of the year. Following the North Korea-Russia summit in September last year, Pyongyang's foreign minister visited Moscow in January to discuss another potential visit. A Kremlin spokesperson said that Putin's schedule for a visit to North Korea is being coordinated through diplomatic channels, but there were no plans to visit before and immediately after the presidential election. Analysts suspect that Putin is treading carefully amid reports of an arms trade between the two sides that violate UN Security Council resolutions. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Over in Hong Kong, a new security law is poised to take effect there starting this coming Saturday, aimed at cracking down on public dissent. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The Safeguarding National Security Law was unanimously passed by Hong Kong's Legislative Council on Tuesday, expanding the government's power to punish anyone who goes against the state. Article 23 includes new measures on treason, espionage, external interference, state secrets, and sedition. The bill was first presented on March 8th and was quickly put up for vote less than 2 weeks later. The 90-seat council, which consists of mainly pro-China loyalists, saw 88 lawmakers and the council's president vote unanimously to enact the new national security law. The newly passed bill includes 39 security crimes and their punishments. It also means harsher punishments for those who commit those crimes. The maximum penalty is life imprisonment for treason or rebellion and up to 20 years for espionage with the intent to jeopardize national security. Some lesser offenses, including the possession of seditious publications, could also lead to several years in jail. While many citizens are concerned by the passing of the bill, lawmakers believe it will make Hong Kong a safer place.
Whatever comes, it'll come. We don't mind. You can see other countries do everything to protect their national security. And why can't we protect our national security? Okay? Be it downgrade, be it whatever, we don't mind.
Meanwhile, Washington says Hong Kong's new national security law has the potential to accelerate the closing of a once open society as it's analyzing the potential risks to U.S. citizens and American interests.
We believe that these kinds of actions have the potential to accelerate the closing of Hong Kong's once open society. So we're analyzing this legislation and we are taking a look at what the potential risk could be to not just U.S. citizens, but other American interests that we might have.
An attempt to pass a version of the national security law in 2003 was met with massive street protests that drew 500,000 people and led to the withdrawal of the legislation. It also comes after similar legislation was introduced in China in 2020, which has largely silenced the pro-democracy protests seen in 2019. The law goes into effect Saturday. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. The International Olympic Committee said on Tuesday that Russians and Belarusians will not be taking part in the parade of athletes at the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. According to the IOC, the athletes from the two countries will compete without their flags and anthems as a consequence of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Russians and Belarusians will be competing as individual neutral athletes under a specially created flag and an instrumental anthem with no lyrics produced by the IOC. The IOC said that although the athletes will not be part of the opening parade, they will be invited to experience all other parts of the opening ceremony. It also announced that Russian and Belarusian athletes who qualify for the Paris Games will be vetted by a 3-member IOC panel. 36 Russian and 22 Belarusian athletes are expected to compete at this summer's Olympics. In Bolivia, local authorities have found and seized almost $500 million of cocaine hidden in a shipment of scrap metal. The country's interior minister said on Monday that it is the second largest drug bust in Bolivia's history. Bolivia's Special Force of Fight Against Drug Trafficking found over 7.2 tons of cocaine in 2 trucks at the Pisiga customs on the border with Chile. The narcotics were hidden in scrap metal to be initially exported to Belgium before distribution to the rest of Europe. 3 suspects have been detained for criminal association and drug trafficking. In January, authorities also seized 8.7 tons of cocaine and the largest anti-drug operation in Bolivian history. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime says that Bolivia is the 3rd largest grower of coca, the base plant from which cocaine is produced. The World Meteorological Organization said on Tuesday that all major global climate change indicators broke records in 2023. According to the latest annual State of the Global Climate Report released by the UN's weather agency, average temperatures reached 1.45 degrees Celsius higher than pre-industrial levels, hitting the highest level in 174 years. Oceans are also suffering, with the report showing over 90% of the seas experiencing heatwave conditions, while ocean temperatures reached their warmest in 65 years of data collection. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres commented on the report, saying that the Earth is issuing a distress call and that the planet is on the brink. A new air quality report suggested that all but one of the 100 cities with the world's worst air pollution last year were in Asia. IQAir's 6th annual World Air Quality Report, published Tuesday, showed that 83 out of the 100 cities with the worst air in the world were in India. The report, which specifically studied the levels of fine particulate matter, or PM2.5, showed that Begusarai, a city in northern India, was the most polluted last year, suffering from a PM2.5 concentration of almost 120, which is 23 times more than the WHO guidelines. PM2.5 has been linked to asthma, heart and lung disease, and other respiratory conditions, alongside cognitive impairment in children. Gaeseong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's spring equinox today, but it felt more like winter this morning with feels like temperatures going down below 0 here in the capital, and it's going to be even colder tomorrow morning. You know, it's easy to catch a cold when the temperature swings like this, so take care. Meanwhile, snow continues in Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-Pukto province with 1 to 5 centimeters in the forecast today. A heavy snow advisory remain in place for Donghae and Samcheok in Gangwon-do, while coastal regions and Jeju remain under a strong wind advisory, with a dry advisory still in effect for southeast regions today. Afternoon highs should be 1 to 5 degrees lower than yesterday. Seoul gets up to 9 degrees, Busan topping out at 13 degrees Celsius this afternoon under bright skies nationwide, but that sharp winds will make it feel chillier today. We are looking at a chance of rain late Friday, then this weekend will be very warm, nearing 20 degrees by Sunday in the capital. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. Right, and that ends our afternoon newscast for this Wednesday here in Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Do stay with us. Thank you for now.